All right, well, we're in the game. What's up, superheroes? My name is Miles,
And I'm midwife Audrey.
and we're real life superheroes.
Well,
Uh,
today, we have a fun little, I don't know, thing that we're doing. We're going to talk about our impressions about what's the name of the movie?
it's the new Captain America movie. We went and saw it this afternoon. It's Captain America Brave New World.
That's
Let's you want to do like just a basic impression, like
sure,
how did you feel
sure.
coming in? So I guess my two thoughts that I'm thinking about is like one, like how did you feel about sort of the captain, like the Sam Wilson Captain America going into the movie, and how did you like? How did you like it or not today? I think that's probably the things I'm curious
Um,
about.
well, I don't know that like before the movie had like a big like, oh man, this character is so like this and that, and I'm so excited to see how it's going to develop and change. Like I think I've kind of just been like, oh, okay, cool. Another Marvel movie. Um, Granted, I do like some of the components in the Captain America storyline in terms of like, you know, uh I don't know, some of the metaphors and just some of the ideas of like what the movie is trying to say in a deeper sense,
Mm,
But otherwise, like,
yeah. No, that tracks. That makes sense. That's funny because like that's like I think that's the selling point for a lot of people on the whole Captain America franchise is like that, right? It's like the superhero franchise that kind of like gets down and in the real world stuff a little more,
mm,
and I think that it's compelling, I think, a lot for that reason. So um I think a lot of people that I've heard of probably share your view on that. All right, so that was coming into it today.
hmm
I don't know, how did you like the movie?
um, overall, it was good. I gotta say it. I don't want to say it wasn't super memorable. Like there's some of the movies that after you get out, there's certain scene or certain parts that like, oh my God, that's right. Like it comes back. It was like good, like it's like a good grilled cheese sandwich. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
good. You like grilled cheese, but you can't really remember like if you remember that grilled cheese, then literally there was something that was so like, oh my gosh. And then it had blah 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 and whatever. But
Right.
otherwise, like grilled cheese is solid. It hits, it's good.
Yeah, I agree. I
But I don't necessarily like explicitly remember like, oh man, that part or that scene. I'm like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was entertaining for the time that we sat there watching. At least I don't feel like I wasted my life. I'm like, I want my money back. I want I
Right.
want parts of my life back.
Yeah, there are some movies that are like that. You're totally right. This wasn't one of those for me. I think the consensus I've been hearing from, like, apparently it doesn't hasn't had a really great critic scores, but the audiences seem to be enjoying it well enough. And I think that's everyone's sort of thing. Is it all seems to be like, that's a pretty good ride. Like that's about it. And
Had some turns. It went up, went down, heartbeat a little bit.
you know,
It hit the
the
recipe.
thing.
A grilled cheese sandwich. It was good.
So, yeah, I think my read on it is pretty similar. I I think like having dug a little more into the Marvel universe stuff, I was coming in with this like I've always been, well, we were talking about earlier. I've always been a little bit in the minority that like the my favorite Captain America movie is not the popular one. Most people say that it's Winter Soldier. That's like for Star Wars, everyone's like, "Oh, Empire Strikes Back is the
Oh,
best," right?
the second one.
Right, right.
The third one.
So for me, I really loved that one. I think it's great, but
Which one is that?
the Winter Soldier, so that'd be Cap 2.
Oh, the
Um,
one where like Bucky comes in and Captain tries to like save him, but then Bucky like
yeah, nailed it.
falls and
Nailed
does the dying
it.
thing.
Baby, you did it so good.
At least so we thought.
It's so good. I love it. Yes, nailed it.
Okay.
So that was the one. That's the one everybody
That's your
loves.
favorite one.
No,
And
not
why
my
is
favorite. That's the one most people, from what I understand, like that's the popular
Oh,
favorite one.
I see.
But for me, it was always like my second. And frankly, for me, most of the Captain America movies at all are like within a very close range of good to each other. You know what I mean? Like I don't think I the Thor movies, on the other hand, kind of vary from one to the other.
Well, I
You
guess
know,
that's the conversation for another day.
yeah,
So when you say
yeah.
that's your second favorite, then which one's your first
So
favorite?
my
American movie.
It's complicated. I think that was the takeaway from the
It's
movie.
complexly
It's
complicated.
there. It is. No, I have a lot of feelings about that movie. So, like you say, that's probably a conversation for another time too. But I that was my favorite one up
Okay.
till this point. And coming into it today, I think that was part of what I was so excited about. I think for this movie coming in was that it felt to me like they almost were pulling from all of my favorite parts of the Captain America franchise,
Mm.
right? Instead of Red Skull, there's a Red Hulk, right? That's not a spoiler. We're not
That's
we're gonna get into
funny.
spoilers, by the way, but we'll ease into it. but but the Red Hulk is not a spoiler because it has been in every trailer and all of the marketing materials. So in the first Captain America movie, it's a Red Hulk, it's a Red Skull, and we're Red Hulk, and then there's like you know there's just the journey of a Captain America has a certain like a Superman story, right? So the same thing where like Superman and Wonder Woman are similar in the same way that like Captain America, the mantle is the same, where like there's a certain quality about that
Underlying in each character, like a
yeah,
through line.
yeah, there's a through line, right? And so they don't tend to have really big arcs in their stories.
Mm.
Instead, the world has to arc around them, which is so cool. It's such a fun inversion, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and so there's that element of it. There's the, I love the big bombastic stuff from Civil War, and we're getting that with the big action beat with the stuff from the trailers and so on. So I was like, okay, cool. Like that. That's some of my favorite Captain America stuff. Um, and so just walking in, I've been rooting for Sam for a hot minute now. I think the thing that really, it was back in the first time we meet him was in Winter Soldier, and he says something like, he, uh, he says to Nick Fury, he points at Steve Rogers and he says, "I do what he does, just slower." And I like the way, anyway, just the way he just like
Oh,
he's got like
I guess that could be a setup.
yeah, oh yeah,
I just thought about that.
yeah. So it's just his I fell in love with his personality from then. So I've just always been like happy to see him on screen. He's like one of my favorites to watch.
Hmm.
Um, and so now that he's like getting his own movie and stuff like that, I'm like, so I was like, oh, this is all of my favorite stuff. And I walked in and I felt like I was not disappointed. They did everything I wanted them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my I was it was a it's a firm yes from me.
So
Now we
then
can jump into spoilers.
is so that's your overall, I guess, what attitude or feeling of the movie was that it did all the things that it needed to do for you?
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't feel like it broke any records. We're not hitting home runs out of the park, but every shot it aimed to take, I felt like it hit him, and I was
Mhm.
like, "That's a win. That's pretty good." So that's how I felt about like my expectations versus like what we got.
Okay. So then, um, I guess if you want to dive into a little bit more of the meat and potatoes of the movie itself,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I guess includes spoilers,
Yeah, we in
what
spoiler
would you
territory now.
say? What would you say was your, let me start off with least favorite, or what was the lowest point of the movie?
All right. The thing that probably worked for me the least. Um, it's a good question. I think I think the thing that sort of has been weighing on me is something I've heard a couple of other reviewers say, um, which is that I felt like they touch on certain subjects and some stuff they do really well, and it's a thorough sort of exploration of it. But there are other elements that are really rich that they sort of introduced in the movie, and I just don't know that it has enough time to like
Explore
really
those.
explore them all.
Mm.
Right. So some of it feels a little Reader's Digest over what would otherwise be really ripe material for, but
I could see that.
so I don't know that there was really any one thing. If anything, it was just I felt like I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind this being a like one of the longer ones that breathes a little bit,
Mm.
um and so like it was a little bit like the Marvels in that way too. Almost just like I
Mm.
was like by the time it got done, I was like, dang, it was like a great ride, but it felt like it was over too quickly. And some of it
That's funny.
for me was like elements like that. So what about you? What was the lowest part for you? Thing
Well,
you enjoyed
it's
the
not
least?
necessarily one segment or clip of it, but I found myself probably for sure at least two times in the movie, maybe three, where I was like, I don't get it. Like maybe I'd have to do a rewatch, but what I mean by that is like certain character motivations, or like they'll do this monologue and say a thing, but then do another thing where I'm like, that doesn't seem right with character continuity. Like, why would you put in all this like this idea, this effort, this thing, and then it's like, so I felt like it could have like delivered differently, or like in a way that kind of the way they set it up, so you can tell like after the fact or behind the scene, they're like, we need to rewrite that segment, or
Oh,
we need to like restitch how this storyline comes together, and why now this character is on this side, and even though we're setting up to be this other thing, and so not to say that they have to follow like predictability or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. Like we all love twists in movies. That's
hmm
that's what's so great. But like there are just some things where I'm like, why? I don't get it. That doesn't make sense for that character, for this monologue, for this segment in the movie.
yeah.
So and maybe I could recall specifically like what some of those scenes
We're
were,
on the brink of
but
war.
it was also kind of vague where it's like
Can't
trying
trust
to
anyone.
ask which day was it or when was it that you had that really good grilled cheese sandwich?
Nothing
I don't
always feels
know.
right.
I just know sometime in February I had that good
Right.
grilled cheese sandwich. It's kind of how that movie came off. But, it was in regards to like the president and his character and some of the things he was saying and
Hmm.
kind of just like his thought process and then the character development through that thought process, which was like not entirely congruent.
Yeah.
um I think another one was, who was it? I know that character for sure. There was a couple segments for that, but let me think.
Yeah, Harrison Ford with the Ross
Yes.
thing with his daughter and all that, and
Yeah, yeah. There's just some things where I was like, okay, that seemed like a kid was like, and then blah 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 happened. Where it's like, oh, clearly this kid did think this through. Um, was it? I'm trying to think about like, was there anything with the Captain America's roles? I thought there were some things that were pretty, deep and profound in terms of chewing on it. His like what is the point of what he's doing? Like, is it something that will ultimately achieve the why he's standing in this role? Because I think sometimes there is a loss of faith when it's like I'm doing my hardest and I'm trying to do this thing so that this thing won't happen or so that there could be a better world or so that whatever the thing is, and then you just keep coming up against obstacles, or you have kind of like a rock in the hard place kind of thing where it's like why am I even doing this if this is ultimately what it represents or its signification, or if my hand, you know, in incongruence with this, leaves, like this whole, I don't want to say complacency, but like now you're just as guilty, so like
oh
the
yeah.
thing where he's like, Isaiah, I know you're gonna say no to coming to the White House, but I want you to come, you know
Hmm.
and then so he comes, which I'm like, how could what's his name have predicted that? But I guess that's the whole point of the gamma brain
Oh
thing.
yeah, and I think so okay, great
He
question.
because
I think
like
he
there
was
were
also
five
orchestrating
people,
that stuff. So I think he on purpose
which I
arranged for
get
their
that.
invitation, I think.
Yes, and
Mhm.
it was exclusively Captain America whose decision it was to invite Isaiah. That
Yes.
wasn't just he could, you know what I'm saying? Like
Okay.
there was no reason or need to have done that. So maybe that mastermind dude was like, and then because he's getting closer to Isaiah, and
Yeah.
because he goes over to train the Falcon kid,
Okay.
that's when he was like, "Oh, bring the thingy." And so if Isaiah's there, because there were five people that had the flashy thing, and who attempted the assassination on the president.
Hmm.
So and Isaiah was one of them, which means either there is some kind of way. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That dude biohacked all those people. That's why we saw all
Hmm.
their pictures up on the wall.
Yes.
And the president was one of those people that they biohacked. So ultimately they let us know that there was already the seeds planted for like
Yeah.
some stuff going down in terms of like mind trigger trip stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so maybe he saw a camera feed of like who was there and who he's tested and who
Yes.
he's done what. So then he would know who to send the signal to so that they would know who was receptive to the thing so that it would, I don't know.
I think that was about what my read on it was too, actually. And I realized because like they take the selfie, and then after they take the selfie, he says, "Oh, my phone was glitching."
Hmm.
So it could have been the like facial recognition software pings, and it also seemed that the
There
leader
was also like
that
cameras,
mhm.
like camera
Oh
feeds,
yeah, them too, yeah.
and that's where they
And
were able to see
they were right.
the flashes,
Uh
to all those multiple people, not just to the Isaiah Washington guy.
yeah. And
But
so, anyway, yeah, I think it was the facial recognition software from the security cameras that alerted him that he was there. But I was,
But specifically, though, and maybe he's just calculating in real time the whole entire time, the idea of like he was setting this up in motion and he was 10 steps ahead of the whole entire process this whole entire time, which I'm like, okay, so they let us know that what he was trying to do was orchestrate like pretty much a confusion between the Japanese and the Americans and ultimately thereby creating another war,
hmm
thereby ruining this president's legacy
hmm
through having quote unquote specifically that Isaiah Washington character, you know, or Isaiah I forget, whatever,
yeah, Isaiah
Bradley
Bradley, yeah.
character, um, uh, the first Soldier guy being the one to try to take out the president, so that there's like kind of this idea of this internal coup or whatever, so I don't
Yeah,
know. So I'm just like that one felt like a little bit of a stretch or a reach,
yes,
because I'm
I
like it could have just been anybody, any of the other people that he had tested, and like if that Captain America guy didn't invite him to the thing, like
then he wouldn't have been. So then would he have had to pivot? Oh, I think
like
so.
like the story could have just gone on just fine without the Isaiah Bradley character, the guy. But the fact that so then my confusion in and it seemed like a tertiary, like a B level or C level, or like one of those side stories that's like that side story didn't quite make, do we have to have that level of the side story?
Yeah, yeah.
Which brought in, I guess, some thought points or whatever, especially when they said stuff like, you're gonna be working for the government, like, do you know what that stands for, and da da da, you know and then him inviting him to the White House and then that thing happening. But like he didn't have to invite him to the White House. There would have been none of that whole storyline. And still there could have been
Oh, yeah.
the
So,
thing gone down where the other people like had the flashy thing and they
mhm.
tried to kill the president. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And so then the storyline of the like, even inside of your own house, being disorganized or whatever, could have still been a plot point, but yeah. Anyhow,
No, I totally
it's kind of
agree.
like stitching together a bunch of things for the sake of like making it work so that they can build the seeds for other movies. That's gonna kind of like a promo reel for like, here's some upcoming movies because we're gonna set up the stakes that really makes no sense for a reason why we need the Avengers and these other things.
Well, so for me, like as I with the Isaiah Bradley story, I think that it plays more thematically, and this is one of those where I think you and I were definitely picking up on the same thing. But my takeaway was that it, like you say, it felt like a tertiary plot, but it felt like it could have been almost its own movie all by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was enough material
Sure.
there, you know. And so it's like, oh, on the one hand, I'm glad that they, took the time to explore this other story,
Mm-hmm.
and that quite literally, like, and figuratively, like Sam, our Captain America, does not give up on this guy, in a very similar way that
Mm-hmm.
Steve Rogers didn't give up on Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, they shouldn't. That's the right move. That's part of what makes them Cap.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like that thematically it plays that way. And because the writing, I feel, is so trimmed down on this, that that it does a disservice to that really rich material. Um, and so it ends up yada yadaing a few of these like really compelling plot points,
Mm-hmm.
and, and so I think like sort of how we get. I think for me, my version of that was really like, boy, you guys are really kind of reaching this. Is sort of the how we get to the main like global conflict element of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the concept is pretty easy to get. Okay, there's a new resource and people fighting over it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's nothing new. But but it felt like there was just like a few like 3 to 4 sentence exchanges that then like all of a sudden just really
It's like
ratcheted this.
curbed a whole other thing. So here's then, think about this. those two fighter pilots, of all the people in the fleet that they could have sent out, like, do we know for sure those two fighter pilots were also tested by that like one
Oh, I
dude?
see.
So my whole thing is like, so clearly they've disproved that just hearing the message is not enough to turn people. Because that
Right.
one guy, Falcon, which I'm like, how do you accidentally play that on
No, he
loudspeaker?
did it on
Like,
purpose.
oh,
He did it on purpose
to
to
see who
check
to
and see.
flesh out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but the fact, and imagine if everybody then turned,
Right.
including them.
Yeah,
Like
because I think it was
that's
like
a
Spring the
stupid
Trap.
check. That's a really stupid like. We all got, like, I don't know. That wasn't thinking things through. That wasn't, you know what
I
I'm
think
saying?
that's.
That was a really, really big gamble.
I think that was the lesson he learned at the end of the movie. Because remember, Cap was trying to tell him, like, bro, you
Yes.
got to slow your roll,
Yes.
and he got bit for it a little bit.
So, but here we are taking these big old gambles. And I'm like, man, these people are really lucky, assuming that like this is how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
Like, so that's what I mean. So clearly in that section they proved that that scientist guy had to have had
Yeah. By the way,
some previous whatever, so that you could then be receptive to the message to get turned on to do the thing. And so then those two fighter pilots who happened to be the ones in the thing, that thing happened to them, which is why they were shooting the Japanese.
yeah.
So I was like, there's a lot about this, and I'm like,
So there is. So
that guy can calculate and
Yes.
predict.
That's
So I
that's sort of
bet you
superpower.
of all the fighter pilots, it's gonna be these two, and
No, yeah,
you
so
know.
much so that he can like play it and work it out that way in a lot of cases. So he can work probabilities in his favor because he can see them so vividly and so completely so far in advance, right? So I guess for him, like, I think because that in the comics, that's as I understand it, he's like it's like telepathy. Basically, instead of Hulk body, it's Hulk brain, right?
Okay.
And so what is, so if we're scaling up that much physical power, then I guess the intention is to scale up that much mental
the
power.
mental.
Right.
Yeah.
What would somebody be like if they really could calculate probabilities that far in advance and all that?
Okay.
And so
Well, I guess.
I think that, and that's the thing, is that like I don't think they did a good job explaining. Like I have the benefit of being at least a little bit familiar with the character from the comics and the stuff, you know what I mean? So like I had the benefit of like, oh, he's this is like a superpower, supernatural kind of like, it's supposed to be a little like, oh, how does he pull that off? But they don't, in the movie they don't do a very good job at really fleshing that out. They give
I
you
see.
just cursory, just one exposition scene and then so on and so forth. So I think that's where you definitely feel the weight of like reshoots and stuff like that, is that these moments that either are new and had to be added in, so you add as little as possible because you're not trying to spend a bunch of money on reshoots, or these new parts are the old parts and something else has been new and you had to cut it whatever
In
you
a
need to cut
way
off
for
on
it to make sense,
right
to still be able to stitch together. Yeah.
right. And so technically you walk out with a movie where like it did make sense start to finish, but if you sit and really think on it, they didn't give you enough information for it to pass a second round of sort of scrutiny. So
Or have like, some deeper connected points.
Yes.
In terms of like emotional resonance, or like, that's how it feels,
Yeah.
like. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
Yeah, and so that's for me the negative on, and I think I'm right there with you on all those points. What about your positive? Was there a favorite part of it?
Oh, that's right. Imagine wrapping up and be like, and that's what we thought.
Non.
Well, I think the action is always good. We saw it in 3D, which, is like, I think there's only one scene that I was like, oh, but otherwise I was like, oh, that altogether really was not a 3D movie, or even needed to be, but it was still, good and entertaining, getting to see it in like high def or whatever. Okay, so action was good. Like, I actually really think about like, is there a favorite part? Is there a Yeah, I think it Marvel just made a solid just Marvel movie.
Yeah.
That was like another grilled cheese sandwich. Um because like I thought they were gonna go even deeper with like the assistant's character. I was like, ooh, homegirls again, like some screen time. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
So okay. It was just a lot of like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's the whole point is they're trying to change up the expectation and predictability so that they can start bringing in something new. Or maybe it was just like a here we go movie.
I think it was probably more that. From what I hear about the production, it was a lot more that. But
I guess it ended up taking a negative slant. That was supposed to be my positives about the movie.
yeah, maybe you didn't like it that much. I liked it. I
I
still
mean,
liked it. Or
I
you
guess
liked it in the moment. So
I just
there's the
I
initial.
keep sliding on the side of like, oh yeah, Marvel movie. I like Marvel movie. They're good. They're solid. I didn't dislike it. I wasn't like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah. Well, some and some of them are kind of like okay. So for instance, like Thor, Love and Thunder. That one, like even
You didn't like it?
as I was watching it the first time, and I wanted to get because I
Oh, I
loved
thought it was
Ragnarok so
good. I
much.
thought it was pretty good.
Well,
That was the
well,
one with the Jane character,
yes, and that was
and
the
she
thing is
ends up dying and whatever.
for me, like that one, I felt like had the same thing going on that this one did that you're talking about. So that was my experience of it. Was like more in that movie.
Bruno back. Oops.
Nice.
Thanks for making me look good. Good
Um.
back, Bruno.
So anyway, yeah. So that movie felt like that for me, and I still enjoyed it. So for me, that was my grilled cheese sandwich. Movie. That was my like. It's fine. It's a Marvel movie.
All right.
I didn't
So
dislike it, but
what's a grilled cheese sandwich get us? A B plus? A B?
oh, for yeah.
Nothing
Okay.
better
Well,
than a C?
see, I would say Ragnarok is yeah, it's like a B minus for me. And this one, okay, so for me, for this one, is like A minus territory for me. I had a lot of fun with this
So
one
really good.
because it was so like I really enjoy the 3D theater experience
So
for like a big
if
action.
Marvel makes anything 3D, pretty much it starts off in the A territory.
No, definitely not. No.
Oh, it's a 3D movie.
But what I'm trying to
It's
say
gonna be great.
is, no, but this movie was definitely made for like go have fun at the Marvels was a little bit like that. Thor, Love and Thunder was like that.
Yeah.
These aren't
Well,
the
I
movies.
definitely like the Marvels more. I
Yeah.
think there are just some things that I was like, ah, that's funny. Like even after the fact, I was like, oh, that time, in the ship where she's like,
Oh my god, it was so
God. When the cat does the flirking thing, or her falling out of the sky, and like it was just so believable from a like real life superhero standpoint that it's like, oh, legit, I'd be screaming if I was falling out the damn sky like that.
Yes.
Like that's totally believable. Like the Iman Vellani, just her reactions, just like it's so down to earth. Like yes,
Literally,
that is legit. And then the funny part where it's like black or mash, do some black or magic, like do the thing, like you can rise to the occasion, just make it happen. So the wit, the different things it punched.
Yeah, and this one wasn't going for that kind of tone, so I think it hurt it that it moved at a clip like that. This movie, some different movie, different tone, you can get away with it for certain things because the fast kind of like this guy's
so what's some of your evaluation then that would actually give it some of the A, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I've heard you talk about some negative points, and so you're like, oh, it was a good A minus. So I was like, so far of what you said, it weighs more on the minus part.
Yeah,
What actually gives it an A?
No, so we touched on this earlier. I think I don't remember if it was in the kitchen or here just earlier. I forget, but everything they were trying to do was like the stuff that I really like, and they did those things well. So even though there wasn't a lot of really good connective tissue, I loved the Hulk action business. I liked Harrison Ford's emotional journey.
Hmm.
Um, I thought that that was a good uh, cautionary tale about ambition and anger and your
Hmm.
willingness to do anything for an objective and
Hmm.
what that the damage that causes. So in terms of like thematically, I think they did a really good job at really hitting the broad strokes. And so for
Got it.
me, because I like a 3D movie that's got lots of really exciting stuff
See?
in it like that.
So the A
Well,
was because it was a 3D movie. Just kidding.
I'm saying that for a movie like that, it's more it's one of those movies that's a really fun roller coaster ride of a movie. And so those are the ones I like to see on the big screen in 3D because if nothing else, even if it's not a movie that sticks with you afterward, at the very least you got to have the fully immersive experience. So I got to feel like the Hulk was about to smash me in my face, or feel what it felt like to see, Cap and Falcon soaring over the big celestial hand. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that kind of stuff. I love it because I feel like I get to feel like I'm there in it with them. And so, if the movie is not going to be the kind that sticks with you afterward, at the very least, I appreciate it if it's like, oh, while I was
The
watching
action
it,
is
was a
good.
really fun
Yeah.
adventure.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just that. So it did have the fun action, that was like bigger, more like Civil War, and not, but it also had some of the really tense moments. I felt like in Captain America Winter Soldier,
Hmm.
the one that everyone loves. I think it had a lot of really like good emotional beats with Cap doing Cap stuff. Like Steve Rogers was just sort of this anchor that everybody had an arc around them. They bend
Hmm.
around them because he even says they even have a whole thing on it in Civil War where it's like, when you can compromise, when you can't, plant yourself like a tree and tell the world, no, you move. And so I think that Steve Rogers had the benefit of, certainly early in his time as Captain America, and a little bit less so later. But like he always, I felt, had a less complicated path to walk.
Hmm.
So Sam walks a much rockier
It's
terrain.
complexly
It is
complicated.
complexly complicated, and
Hmm.
some of it is just the nature of escalation of superhero life, and some of it's, he literally has different stuff he uses, and then there's some of it is rocky because it's stupid and it shouldn't be rocky, but it is, and that's some of the stuff I felt like they touch on, but didn't
Hmm.
really dive into as much as maybe they could have. So ultimately, I guess I think Anthony Mackie, I've loved his vibe since we first met him in Winter Soldier, and so being that he's just been so fun to watch, I was really happy to go on an adventure with him, and I got everything out of this movie that I tend to like out of the Captain America movies. So I think like that's a damn good grilled cheese sandwich.
All
Would you
right.
guys like to play the trailer?
Oh, yeah, sure. If you want, put it on. I really like this trailer too.
You asked for me.
I don't think it's up true.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, you're good.
I just haven't had it prepared for you guys on the screen, right?
No sweat, no sweat. This is, you know what else? There's another movie in the Marvel canon that's like this, where the trailer was really great and the movie was good, but the trailer was great. This is, I think, one of those.
Mhm. And it's coming right on up.
You asked for me. Here I am.
Like, I just want to be buddies with him.
Is there anything you remember?
Not really. That's part of the problem.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Thaddeus Ross.
And where'd that gun come from? You took it off that other guy?
I think so.
Whatever this is, Cap, be careful. What do we know?
There were 5 shooters. This was a coordinated terrorist attack, sir.
I was a wartime general. Now I'm a wartime president. Your inner circle's been compromised. Let me fix it. Watch yourself. You're not Steve Rogers. You're right. I'm not.
I don't think Steve would have handled it any differently, frankly, Ross. I think he'd probably
Wait for it.
been throwing shields too. Ah, this man. This
We're
was
on the
this is what I'm
brink
saying.
of
Like, I
war.
love stuff.
I can't trust anyone. Nothing about this feels right. Captain America. You ever
Do
ask
they?
yourself, who's playing who?
We felt like you're showing us a lot of the action.
Someone's been pulling the strings on everything.
You're under arrest.
I don't want a variable out there that I can't control.
Stop!
Captain America caught without his wings.
You like to play dress up and blindly execute the state's orders.
Don't say I didn't warn you.
What if this is a trap? You don't even know what this is.
Since when were they red?
I just now realized that, like, oh. If you watch the movie, you can tell
Come and get me!
the president is something Red Hulk because it looks like.
Oh yeah.
And that move, you know, is probably one of Captain America's like iconic moves because I think they did that flip thing literally like 3 or 4 times in the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I love it. I just to wrap it up, I guess, because I think I probably got most of my thoughts out. I really love the like. I don't have a preference. I like classic Cap. I like new Cap. I like them both. I really like the flight suit and the wings and stuff, and I think he's like really fun because he's acrobatic. But Steve Rogers, OG, like that's part of why we love the Shield and stuff because Steve made it cool, you know. So I find myself happy to watch either of them because I like watching good dudes kicking ass in a world where things are fucked up.
Watching good dudes kicking ass. All right, cool.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I thought it was a lot of fun. Thanks for going on that awesome date with me. I had a
Cool.
good time.
On that note, go watch some good dudes kicking some ass.
There you go.
All right, cool.
Thanks, baby. That was awesome.
We did it.
We did it. Nice. Damn, you tore that movie a new one. I was like,
Did
okay,
I?
okay. You seemed like you were cutting here and cutting there. I was like, okay.
No, I was
You just- but that was-